Kartik just began, and in the mood of Kartik, Vrindavan. In the evening classes, we'll be discussing Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, which of course, there's some attention that goes to the demons that Krishna kills, but there's also attention that goes to Krishna and his loving exchanges with the Brijbasis. And particularly the cowherd boys. There's, in each of these chapters, there's an extensive section, Krishna's killing of demons, well, most of them, an extensive section about the playing of the cowherd boys. And it says, the pretext of hurting the cows, they're just playing. And the cows just follow them. There's a very nice description. One evening, I think it's Monday evening, we're going to hear about the earlier stage where Krishna just begins to take care of the calves. When Krishna, the elders, headed by Nanda's elder brother, Nanda's the middle brother, but when King Parjanya, who was their father, passed the kingdom on to his eldest son, Upananda simultaneously transferred the kingdom and kingship to his middle brother, saying, I'm just Upananda, he's Nanda. He's the best. So Nanda became the king. And Upananda, the elder brother, held a village elder conference or gathering in Gokul, discussing too many demons, safety of our children, especially Krishna and Balaram. We should move. No guarantee that the demons won't bother us, but let's go to Vrindavan. The other side of the river Jamuna is a very nice place. Lots of fresh grass. Here the cows have eaten so much of the grass. Big space. It's under the jurisdiction of the king, so we'll have his protection in case we need it. And everyone agreed, so they moved. And as soon as they moved, Krishna's persistently asking his father to take care of the cows. He asked his mother. She said, no, those cows are so big. And you're so small. You're only 3 years old. They're so big. No. So he persisted. Father was easier. And the man went out every day to herd the cows, so he tagged along. And very soon they could understand the cows don't pay any attention to us. Just wherever Krishna goes, that's where they go. And he's very attached to the cows, and the cows are very attached to him. So we have to do something. So they let them take care of the calves. So we'll hear about that on, I think it's going to be Monday. The first demon when hurting the calves is Vatsasura, then Bakasura. We'll hear those pastimes. Here now he's old enough to take care of cows. And Krishna and Balaram, the cover slide here is both Krishna and Balaram tossing the ass demons here and there, but it was primarily Balaram who was engaged in this activity. We'll hear some reasons why. Prabhupada writes in Krishna book, in chapter 2, which is the prayers I have the wrong. Excuse me, I'm just going to go out for a moment to another version. Yeah, this one. Okay. This pastime of killing Dhenukasura happens just after Krishna and Balaram turned 6. And they end their Kaishore period and they begin their Poganda period. Because the Poganda period, you'll see in just a moment, it's from 6 to 10. So Krishna graduated from kindergarten to first grade. He graduated from taking care of the calves to taking care of the cows. The first day. This is their first day with the cows. Shukadeva Goswami said, when Rama, Balaram, and Lord Krishna attained the age of Poganda, 6 to 10, while living in Vrindavan, the cowherd men allowed them to take up the task of tending the cows. So there's a nice description in Gopal Champu about the change of the features of the boys along the change of age. When the 6th year clearly arrived, with his birthday, filled with joy, on the occasion of the increased age, which would give a wealth of bliss, the enchanting Kaishora age of Krishna appeared fully, spreading auspiciousness to all. When Kaishora predominates in Krishna's body, which is resplendent in the 3 worlds, and surpasses all in excellence with its playfulness, Krishna gives himself to that age, the shelter of all good qualities, full of excellent knowledge, and cause Poganda to disappear. Now, it's Gopal Champu, and it's saying it in reverse. So, I'm not going to sort through all that. Bhagavatam is saying the age of Poganda is 6 to 10. His age brings all things under control by joy of his glance, by his conciliation, by his luster, by his special attractive intelligence, and by the staff of his bhavas endowed with other meanings. His face becomes full and brilliant. His eyes became long with a reddish glow, and his chest became high and wide, while his waist was thin. Even a little of this beauty attracted the eyes of the whole universe. Balaram developed in the same way. There's several things going on. One of those things going on is as they enter a new stage, their body changes, their minds change, and their relationships change. The relationship with Balaram when they were younger was just friends. And now it's shifting slightly to Balaram's the older brother. It's moving a little bit in that direction, like parental affection. Kind of Balaram acts like that sometimes towards Krishna, as the elder brother will sometimes act towards the younger brother. At the end of this pastime, when they're returning back to the village, the girls are waiting. So there's boy-girl stuff starting at 6. But it's said by our acharyas, although his body was of that age, his general conduct and demeanor was much more mature than his age. He was a precocious little boy. And they're the thing that they did when they were 3. It's described this way: they would do them again, but the consciousness behind their activities was different. No, it's not a psychology course. It's just a description of Krishna's the reservoir of everything. He's the source of everything, the reservoir of all rasas. And so he's enjoying these pastimes of, as if he was a small child growing, he's enjoying a whole range of emotions and activities with his friends. Engaged thus in the company of their friends, the 2 boys rendered the land of Vrindavan most auspicious by imprinting upon it the marks of their lotus feet. So that's the transition, and there's the pastime of readying to go to the pasture ground. You see in the background, there's some boys, the sun isn't even up yet, and they could hardly sleep. They just want to be with Krishna. So they're telling Mother Yasoda, hurry up. Krishna, hurry up. And look closely. It's a very beautiful painting. There's his buffalo horn and garland by her side. There's some other ornaments and a stick and a flute and a this and a that. And Balaram is trying to help put on his ankle ornaments, and Mother Yasoda is just filled with affection for Krishna. And the cowherd boys are, let's hurry up, let's go. Another nice painting, similarly, where other boys are helping in this painting. Here's another painting where it's Mother Yasoda's by the side and the boys are doing largely, decorating Krishna, a whole set of ornaments and paraphernalia in those clay jars. Balaram's got the plow over his shoulder. Let's go. Here's a close-up showing that it's like deity dressing every morning. Krishna's the deity. In Brihat Bhagavatamrita, there's a description like this. After Gopakumar returns to Braja, and there are things that happen, there is a beautiful description of what happens the next morning and how all the little things that Krishna does. It's a beautiful meditation. Whatever one's liking of Braja Rasa is. And Mother Yasoda is kind of at the center stage. She's a doting mother. And Krishna takes a few steps. She stops him. Let me adjust your garland. I gotta go now, Mom. Takes a few more steps. She comes and makes sure that he has enough samosas in his little bag for lunch. Takes a few more steps. She comes and says to Balaram, he gets into mischief. You please stay by his side all the time and make sure he's protected. And like this, so finally Krishna gets to leave. It's a very beautiful. The exchanges of love between Yasoda and Krishna as he's departing each day is really awesome. But there they go. They're heading out the front gate. There's Nanda and the other cowherd men saying goodbye. The cowherd boys are playing on their buffalo horns. And the cows look really ecstatic. Offer a whole day of fun. And they're not really herding the cows, as mentioned. They just tag along behind. And there's Krishna and Balaram holding hands. Another boy on the far left reaching out, he wants to touch Krishna. Another boy wants to touch Krishna. So like that. They're playful, transcendental children. And another nice painting. Balaram with the plow over his shoulder. Krishna gesturing, explaining where they're going next. And we're going to now hear some of their daily activities as they enter into the forest with the cows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead looked over that forest, which resounded with the charming sounds of bees, animals, and birds, and which was enhanced by a lake whose clear water resembled the minds of great souls, and a breeze carrying the fragrance of 100-petal lotuses. Seeing all this, the Lord decided to enjoy the auspicious atmosphere. Now, the commentary in this section is really fantastic. Because, remember, this is Krishna's first day of going out with the cows. And what that meant was when he went with the calves, the radius of where Krishna could go was much shorter because he had to come back for lunch. That was a rule. But now when he's herding the cows, he doesn't have to come back for lunch. So he has the whole of Vraja as his playground. Because that's what they do, they play. And the cows are eating fresh grass wherever they go, but it's playfulness. So he has decided to enjoy the auspicious atmosphere, and his enjoyment is enlivening his devotees. The devotees' enjoyment is giving pleasure to Krishna, and Krishna's enjoyment is giving loving reciprocation and enlivening his devotees. So there's a range of his devotees, which includes the forest of Vrindavan. It's described, I mentioned this at the very beginning, when Krishna was 3 years, 4 months, they shifted from Gokul to Vrindavan. There's a really nice verse, which said as soon as he and Balaram, they were playing on the way over and so forth and so on. As soon as they landed, Krishna was especially ecstatic and stimulated by 3 things. The forest of Vrindavan, the banks of the river Jamuna, and Govardhan Hill. He was just ecstatic. Of course, this is the eternal place, and he's always ecstatic. But he loved Vrindavan. So the description here is he's entering into the forest of Vrindavan the first day with the cows. And so he's going to enliven the trees, the bushes, the creepers, the rocks, the rivers, the animals, the birds, and everything. And he's going to gesture to them. He's going to speak about them. They're going to understand that he's honoring them, and they're going to become jubilant because he's honoring them, and they become more luxuriant because they're jubilant, and Krishna's noticing, and it's a festival. That's the mood. That's Vrindavan. Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. The primeval Lord saw the stately trees with their beautiful reddish buds and their heavy burden of fruits and flowers were bending down to touch his feet with the tips of their branches. Thus he smiled gently and addressed his elder brother. Again, commentary says, although he knows they're honoring him, he wants to draw attention to his brother. It's a mood of the elder brother and honoring the elder brother. So that's what he does. Oh, greatest of the lords, Krishna speaking to Balaram, just see how these trees are bowing their heads at your lotus feet, which are worshipable by the immortal demigods. The trees are offering you their fruits and flowers to eradicate the dark ignorance that has caused their birth as trees. Starts with the trees. Oh, original personality, these bees must all be great sages and most elevated devotees of yours, for they are worshipping you by following you along the path and chanting your glories, which are themselves a holy place for the entire world. Although you have disguised yourself within this forest, O sinless one, they refuse to abandon you. Their worshipable Lord. Commentary says, from time to time, Balaram would just wander here and there, go into some forested area alone. The bees would follow him. They were too attached. So the trees, the bees, oh, worshipable one, these peacocks, the birds, are dancing before you out of joy. These doe are pleasing you with affectionate glances, just as the gopis do. And these cuckoos are honoring you with Vedic prayers. All these residents of the forest are most fortunate, and their behavior toward you certainly befits great souls receiving another great soul at home. Because home is Vrindavan. Their home is Vrindavan, and Krishna and Balaram's home is Vrindavan. They're being received by their relatives at home. He's creating a mood, and he's honoring everything that's in Vrindavan, drawing attention and affection to Balaram. This earth has now become most fortunate because you have touched her grass and bushes with your feet, and her trees and creepers with your fingernails. And because you have graced her rivers, mountains, birds, and animals with your merciful glances. But above all, you have embraced the young cowherd women between your two arms, a favor hankered after by the goddess of fortune herself. Now that pastime hasn't happened yet. Krishna's knowing that pastime will happen. It does happen. When they're in Dwarka, after some long time, Balaram comes to Vrindavan and spends a long time in Vrindavan, including he has his own set of gopis and has his own rasa dance, and it's a very celebrated section of the 10th canto. So Krishna's knowing that ahead of time, before it happens. That's what commentary says. Sometimes with a voice as deep as the rumbling of clouds, he would call out with great affection the names of the animals who had wandered far from the herd, and thus enchanting the cows and the cowherd boys. Now how did he call their names? He played on his flute, and the flute called their names. His flute is a multi-purpose flute. He did many things with that flute, including calling the cows. There's a whole chapter, what is it? Chapter 35, I think it is. It's where it's after the rasa dance section, and then it's focusing now on Krishna going out into the pasture ground after the rasa dance. And it's a beautiful chapter. The gopis, there's one verse at the beginning and one verse at the end, and all the others are paired. The whole chapter is structured like that. And it's focused on the sound of Krishna's flute and how it affects all the living entities. Like for 10 pairs of verses, how Krishna's flute affects the river, the rocks, the birds, the animals. The gopis are seeing on their remote television in their hearts like Sanjaya could see what Krishna was doing in the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, the gopis had, because of they were advanced yogis. They could see what Krishna was doing and how everything was going on, because their intense absorption in him. So, as he plays on his flute to call the cows, because that's ostensibly the flute was to inform the cows, let's go, and to inform the residents in the forest, here we come. And he is creating a festive atmosphere through his flute playing in various ways, because living entities are going to hear that same sound in ways that match their natures. This is Vrindavan. Desiring to enjoy more pastimes, Lord Madhava, sounding his flute, surrounded by cowherd boys who are chanting his glories, and accompanied by Lord Baladev, kept the cows before him and entered deeper into the Vrindavan forest, which was full of flowers and rich with nourishment for the animals. This is his first day, but we should understand it's like this every day. It's a festival every day. Festival every day. Krishna and Balaram enjoy the forest filled with birds and animals. Sometimes he would sit and have discussion with the animals, different varieties of the animals, and they would immediately come to him for the affectionate exchange. Behind him there's a deer, to the side there's a peacock, like that. They were relating entirely to him, and vice versa. They would play, sometimes imitating fear. On the lower part is running away, while one boy is playing like a lion. Sometimes he would cry out in imitation of birds, such as the chakoras, kraunchas, chakravas, bharadvajas, and peacocks. And sometimes he would run away with the smaller animals in mock fear of lions and tigers. Krishna would speak with the birds. Sometimes the boys would find a well, and they would call out very loudly bad names. And the bad names would echo back, and they would laugh. Sometimes they would play on swings. Sometimes, this is kvachit, that's how the slokas begin. Sometimes. Balaram would become tired. So he would lie down, and Balaram's head would be a resting place on the lap of one cowherd boy, and Krishna would personally massage his feet. This is the elder brother mood. And you see one cowherd boy with some leaves, they would do some fanning. In the background there's a cowherd boy blowing a conch shell. It's just playfulness. When his elder brother, fatigued from playing, would lie down with his head upon the lap of a cowherd boy, Lord Krishna would help him relax by personally massaging his feet and offering other services. And sometimes it was the reversal. Sometimes Lord Krishna also grew tired from fighting and lay down at the base of a tree, resting upon a bed made of soft twigs and buds, and using the lap of a cowherd friend as his pillow. The commentary says, do you know how many cowherd boys there were? Asankhataha. Too many to count. This is described in chapter 12. It's really beautiful. It's when he starts with the calves. And the commentary goes into some really big numbers. So many means this, and so means that, and so many means that, and so many means that. It's something like something, zillion, trillion. There's a lot. And they love Krishna. So when Krishna wanted to rest, they would all want to make this little resting place with leaves and twigs and buds of flowers. And there were hundreds of those. So Krishna would expand himself into hundreds of Krishnas. And they all think, wow, we're so fortunate. Krishna's allowing us to do this service. They didn't recognize there were so many Krishnas engaged in the same way. Some of the cowherd boys, who were all great souls, would then massage his lotus feet, and others, qualified by being freed from all sin, would expertly fan the Supreme Lord. Then they go deeper into the forest and continue their activities of playing. Here's again another close-up. This is a spring season, this pastime. It comes after his birthday, so it's the spring season. Here's Gopal Champu describing the season. When the monsoon arrived, the tal fruits became ripe, because we're heading for the Talavan. The tal fruits became ripe. Krishna and Balaram, with their friends, herded the cows in the southeastern corner of Govardhan, which increases all happiness. So the location of the tal forest is given as 1 krosha east of Govardhan and 1 krosha west of Mathura, or 8 miles. It's in between the two. And Krishna's home is north of Govardhan. So it gives you some idea. They're heading south and then east, at least this particular day. And as they're heading east, from a far-off place, an unprecedented eastern wind, meaning coming from the east, carried the aroma of ripe tal fruit and similar fragrances. So the boys are smelling this very fragrant tal fruit smell, ripe fruits, very prominent fragrance. And the cowherd boys get the idea, let's get some of those tal fruits. Some of the cowherd boys, Sridham, the very close friend of Rama and Krishna, Sridham is Radharani's elder brother, along with Subal, Stoka Krishna, and others, lovingly spoke the following words. Oh, Rama, Rama, mighty armed one. O Krishna, destroyer of the miscreants, not far from here is a very great forest filled with rows of palm trees. Commentary says they're calling Balaram's name first because they've seen Krishna already killing demons. They know that Balaram has great strength, so they want him. They want to see him show his strength. It is said that the cowherd boys are actually, they're empowered by Krishna. They're expansions of Krishna. So they have powers like Krishna, but they don't like to use their powers. They like to see Krishna use his powers, or Balaram use his powers. And now they're, by their words, indicating, Balaram, please deal with Dhenuka. And, oh Krishna, destroyer of the miscreants, they're alluding to the fact that Dhenuka has to be destroyed. In that Talavan forest, many fruits are falling from the trees, and many are already lying on the ground. But all the fruits are being guarded by the evil Dhenuka. There he is up in their discussion is picturing what they're talking about. Hearing the words of their dear companions, Krishna and Balaram laughed, and, desiring to please them, set off for the Talavan, surrounded by their cowherd friends. In that Talavan forest, many fruits are falling from the trees. Many are already on the ground, but the fruits are being guarded by that evil Dhenuka. Sanatana Goswami writes that Krishna and Balaram were laughing because they wanted to dispel the fear of the cowherd boys. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Krishna and Balaram laughed because they thought the boys were speaking falsely, as no jackass could be as powerful as they seemed to think. The demon Dhenuka has eaten men alive. That's right, Shukadeva Goswami is in the verse. And therefore all people and animals are terrified of going into the tall forest. Oh, killer of the enemy, even the birds are afraid to fly there. Oh Krishna, please get those fruits for us. Our minds are so attracted by their aroma. Dear Balaram, our desire to have those fruits is very great. If you think it's a good idea, let's go to that tall forest. And again, commentary is helping to explain. They don't desire something for themselves. They're speaking as if they want for themselves, but they actually desire for Krishna and Balaram to have. But they're speaking as if it's for themselves because they know that will inspire Krishna. Because he's Bhaktavatsala and he does whatever his devotees are wanting, and they know that. So we're not that we're hungry, we're just attracted to those very nice fruits. And then there's another commentary saying, some people criticize, what's this? Shukadeva Goswami made a mistake. This is rasabhasa. Rasabhasa, meaning a conflict of rasas. Because their rasa is friendship. And how could they invite Krishna knowing that Dhenuka has killed people that go to that forest? How could they possibly suggest he should go to the forest, even have a contemplation like that? There's a mistake. Vyasadeva made a mistake because it's rasabhasa. Commentators say some people speak like this, but it's not a mistake, and it's not a conflict of rasa, because they have all confidence in the power of Krishna. They've seen Krishna do so many amazing, wonderful things again and again, and they know Krishna can easily deal with Dhenuka, and so let's go. More adventure. Their life is fluidly moving from one adventure to the next. Lord Balaram entered the tall forest first. Then with his two arms he began forcefully shaking the trees with the power of a maddened elephant, causing the tall fruits to fall to the ground. One commentary says, Krishna kept distance. Not sure what Dhenuka would do. Meaning he had some apprehension. But he didn't have apprehension. It was allowing Balaram to go first. Sanatana Goswami said that Balaram entered the forest first because he's older than Krishna. He also said the whole planet shook with all its mountains, etc., So this was a real display of the strength of Balaram. He's shaking the trees and the whole earth shook. Very powerful Balaram. And the fruits fell. Hearing the sound of the falling fruits, the ass demon Dhenuka ran forward to attack, making the earth and the trees tremble. Balaram, no problem. Now this shows Krishna, but it's actually Balaram. The powerful demon rushed up to Lord Baladev and sharply struck the Lord's chest with the hooves of his hind legs. Then Dhenuka began to run about, braying loudly. Got him. Moving again toward Lord Balaram, the furious ass situated himself with his back towards the Lord, then screaming in rage, the demon hurled his two hind legs at him. No problem. Lord Balaram seized Dhenuka by his hooves, whirled him about with one hand. Now, he's a big demon. He's just using one hand to grab the hooves, two. His hand must have expanded. Whirled him about with one hand and threw him into the top of a palm tree. The violent wheeling motion killed the demon. Here's a painting depicting, you see Krishna below, and the cowherd boys raising their sticks. We'll help you if you need help. And Balaram wheeling Dhenuka around. Shortly, more of his friends are going to come charging at Balaram and Krishna. Here's a drawing showing he gets slammed into a tree. And there's a very nice, very sweet, very amazing description of this pastime in Garga Samhita. It's so sweet, I'm going to read it. Garga Samhita, as you can see from the cover, that's Narada Muni and his elevated seat, and the person who he's speaking to is the king of Mithila, or Bahulashva. And the one that's narrating this discussion between Narada and Bahulashva is Gargamuni, the same name-giving priest from Mathura. When Balaram had entered the forest and started shaking the trees, Dhenukasura, who was a friend of Kamsa, happened to be taking a midday nap. When he heard the sound of falling fruits, he became filled with anger and appeared in the form of an ass, came before Balaram. Without any warning, he violently kicked his chest, Balaram's chest, with his hind legs. Sri Balaram, smiling, with the cooling effulgence of 100 moons, began to chase Dhenuka around the forest. Catching the ass by his hind legs, he playfully threw him into a tall tree, which collapsed and made other trees also topple. Looking around, Sri Balaram was very pleased with the decorative damage to the forest. When the demon rushed towards him for the second time, he caught Dhenuka and whirling him above his head like a lotus, he threw him a distance of 8 miles. Now this is Garga Samhita, there's some variation. Although Dhenuka lost consciousness, he very shortly regained his ass senses and, manifesting a terrifying form with 4 horns, he began to chase the Gopas, not Balaram. As Dhenuka chased the cowherd boys, angry Sridham hit him with a stick. Subal hit him with his fist. Remember, they have powers like Krishna and Balaram. Stoka Krishna whipped him with a rope, and Arjuna and Angshu caught him together and threw him a great distance. Because the boys were the associates of Sri Krishna, by his grace, they were possessed of his own potencies. While he was lying on the ground, Vishal and Rishabh kicked the demon and called him foul names. Tejasvi jumped on him and tried to strangle him. Devaprastha slapped him on his cheeks, and meek Varutapa threw his ball at him. Bewildered at the fierce attack of these simple coward boys, Dhenuka stood up, only to be grabbed with both hands by Sri Krishna. Whirling him around mercilessly while the coward boys clapped, he was then thrown through the air onto Govardhan Hill, which is the same 8 miles away. By force of this attack, the demon lost consciousness for over an hour. After regaining his senses, he uprooted Govardhan Hill and threw it at Sri Krishna. Govinda playfully caught Giriraj and threw it back at him and hit him in the head. At this time, Balaram grabbed the demon with both hands, threw him to the ground, and then punched him with his fist. With that punch, the demon breathed his last. And the demigods showered flowers and glorified Krishna and Balaram. There's a final section. This is, again, Garga Samhita. It's a little different. It's a little different than the Bhagavatam. What happens when he leaves his body? What kind of liberation did he achieve? I made mention, I'll mention it again. The demons killed by Krishna achieved either Sayuja or the spiritual realm, Vaikuntha realm. Dhenuka's name is mentioned. It doesn't say what type of liberation. In Garga Samhita, here's what it says. Leaving his body, and there's a reason why too, Dhenuka manifested a splendid and handsome dark form, wearing yellow garments and decorated with a forest flower garland. Then a chariot filled with 100,000 of the Lord's associates, decorated with 1,000 flags, rumbling with 1,000 wheels, pulled by 10,000 horses, glorious with 100,000 chamaras, yellow, studded with many jewels, 8 miles long, beautiful, traveled as fast as the mind, and decorated with many bells and tinkling ornaments, suddenly appeared. O king, Narada to Bahalashva, the demon circumambulated Krishna and Balaram, and then, fulfilling the circle of the directions with light, he ascended the chariot and went to Goloka, far beyond the material realm. Pretty exciting. Maybe we'll just sign up and become Dhenuka and see what happens. But it's not like that. So back to Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Balaram threw the dead body of Dhenukasura into the tallest palm tree in the forest, and when the dead demon landed in the treetop, the tree began shaking. The great palm tree, causing a palm tree by its side also to shake, broke under the weight of the demon. The neighborhood tree caused yet another tree to shake, and this one struck yet another tree, which also began shaking. In this way, many trees in the forest shook and broke. But it wasn't just Dhenuka, he has some buddies. Birds of a feather. Because of Lord Balaram's pastime of throwing the body of the ass demon into the top of the tallest palm tree, all the trees began shaking and striking against one another as if blown about by powerful winds. So there's many demons coming. The other ass demons, close friends of Dhenukasura, were enraged upon seeing his death, and thus they all immediately ran to attack Krishna and Balaram. You see in the back right, there's the cowherd boys. and coming at Krishna and Balaram through the tree. There's the cowherd boys over here. And there's the ass demons charging one after the next. O king, as the demons attacked, Krishna and Balaram easily seized them, one after another, by their hind legs, and threw them all into the tops of the palm trees. Here's a BBT painting. This is the updated Krishna book version. These are drawings from Shiva Maharaj's book. He very kindly, I asked, and he sent. He had somebody send from his book on Krishna's pastimes in Braja. The earth then appeared beautifully covered with heaps of fruits and with the dead bodies of demons, which were entangled in the broken tops of the palm trees. Look at that. Indeed, the earth shone like the sky decorated with clouds, because they were apparently multicolored donkeys. Hearing of this magnificent feat of the two brothers, the demigods and other elevated living beings rained down flowers and offered music and prayers of glorification. Well done, well done. People now felt free to return to the forest where Dhenuka had been killed, and without fear they ate the fruits of the palm trees. Also the cows could now graze freely upon the grass there, because no one had gone there. The grass was really nice. And the cows felt, this is really nice. And the people from Braja, they knew it was the season for the tal fruits, and now they could freely come. Thereafter, Krishna and Balaram and the cowherd boys returned to Braja. Remember, the killing of demons in the afternoon was a sign for the boys to return. I just read, Prabhupada was writing, every day, 2 to 3 demons. I was saying 2, but 2 to 3 demons every day. So now comes this change of age, and there's the young girls waiting. With their bee-like eyes, the women of Vrindavan drank the honey of the beautiful face of Lord Mukunda, and thus they gave up the distress they had felt during the day because of separation from him. The young Vrindavan ladies cast sidelong glances at the Lord, glances filled with bashfulness, laughter, and submission, and Lord Sri Krishna immediately accepted these glances as a proper offering of respect, entering the cowherd village. Now, in some cases, he would glance back, but the emphasis is they were glancing at him, and he was recognizing, you know how boy-girl things, he was recognizing they were glancing at him. And he wasn't taking it other than this is fitting respect. Now, it's more than respect. It's another kind of love besides respect. But he took it that way. And he's respecting them because the Lord reciprocates with the love of his devotees. Lord Krishna's hair, powdered with the dust raised by the cows, was decorated with a peacock feather and forest flowers. The Lord glanced charmingly and smiled beautifully, playing upon his flute, while his companions chanted his glories. The gopis altogether came forward to meet him, their eyes very eager to see him. Now it's described, the cowherd boys were very musically inclined. You know, when we chant Sri Brahma Samhita, those verses, the last 2 sets, really long meter, Shriya Kanta Kanta Paramak Parataravo. So the druma, the trees are desire trees, and every step that Krishna takes is a dance, and every word is a song. So Jiva Goswami says, if every step is a dance, what was dancing like? And every word is a song, what was their singing like? But their singing, they didn't say they went to music school, they were just singing. They were singing. They were playing and singing, playing instruments and singing and making composed songs about Krishna's activities that day. That's what the Brijbasis do. When they got back, the parents would hear their songs and they would make their own songs. They would sing their own songs. Their life is just, singing and dancing without a songbook. It's very spontaneous. My dear Parikshit, that Lord Balaram killed Dhenukasura is not such a wonderful thing, considering that he is the unlimited personality of Godhead, the controller of the entire universe. Indeed, the entire cosmos rests upon him, just as a woven cloth rests upon its own horizontal and vertical threads. There are several places that this is mentioned. In Sankhya section in the 3rd canto, it's mentioned. Otam and protam are the terms that are used, the horizontal and vertical threads of a cloth, because that's all the cloth is. It's horizontal and vertical threads. That's it. So the cloth rests upon those threads, and Balaram is the Pratishta of the whole universe. So here's a little, looks like a burlap bag, but it's all resting upon him. The horizontal and vertical threads of a cloth are resting upon Balaram. Everything is resting upon Balaram. Then, lotus-eyed Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories are most pious to hear and chant, returned home to Braja with his elder brother Balaram. Now comes the next rasa, the parental affection rasa. Along the way, the cowherd boys, his faithful followers, chanted his glories as we described, singing and singing and singing. Now he's back. It's time for Krishna's bath. And after Krishna's bath, so the ladies, they're engaged in bathing and dressing him, comes the evening meal. After dining sumptuously on the delicious food given them by their mothers, Rohini and Yashoda, and being pampered in various ways, the two brothers lay down upon their excellent beds and happily went to sleep in the village of Braja. So that's the end of the pastime. Just a few more things. Krishna Samhita by Bhaktivinoda Thakur is revealing these pastimes are helping the sadhaka, the practicing devotee, to overcome obstacles on the path of bhakti. And one of those obstacles on the path of bhakti is Dhenuka being the remover. He represents the materialistic intelligence, or avidya, ignorance of spiritual knowledge. And this is a BBT illustration. It's a BTG illustration. There's a light bulb, and the guy can't even get on the other side of the glass of the light bulb. I didn't know this until we took a little shortcut one day when visiting in Central ISKCON, Central New Jersey. You know where that place is? CNJ, they call it. So the temple is very near to Edison, so I was staying in somebody's home in Edison. And we passed this place. There's a big tower in memory of Thomas Alva Edison that invented a light bulb. I think that's where this illustration comes from. So he knew how to, he tried something, there's some different numbers, 4,000 times or whatever the number is. It didn't work, and it didn't work, and it didn't work, and it didn't work, and then it worked. So he may know how to make a light bulb, but he doesn't know who he is. That's the point. Namam duskritana mudha prapadyant. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur referring to this verse. Maya yaparita jnana. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, etc., do not surrender unto me. So those who are apparently intelligent but ignorant, so-called intelligence or avidya, covered by not vidya but avidya. He writes, the Mayaya Pritagyanis are those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of the illusory material energy. They are mostly learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, literati, scientists, etc., but the illusory energy misguides them, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. Again, this is a BTG illustration. There's a scientist in his laboratory inventing a sandwich. Cutting it in quarters, cutting it in halves. You know, the diagram on the wall is how you make a sandwich. And records of his experiments. And of course, one of the main punching bags for Prabhupada was Charles Darwin and his theory of chemical evolution. The mudhas, this is those 4 categories from the Bhagavad Gita verse, are those who are grossly foolish, like hardworking beasts of burden. They want to enjoy a donkey, Dhenuka. They want to enjoy the fruits of their labor by themselves, and so do not want to part with them for the Supreme. They don't want people to come into the tal forest. If I can't get the tal fruits, then you can't get the tal fruits. The typical example of the beast of burden is the ass. The humble beast is made to work very hard by his master. The ass does not really know for whom he works so hard, day and night. He remains satisfied by filling his stomach with a bundle of grass, sleeping for a while under fear of being beaten by his master and satisfying his sex appetite at the risk of being repeatedly kicked by the opposite party. So, Balaram is the destroyer of that Dhenuka tendency, the avidya tendency. Now there's sometimes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, these 2 demons killed by Balaram have special significance in that not just Krishna eradicates the obstacle, but with these, the devotee, the bhakta, needs to make some serious effort, plus Balaram's strength to help support their effort. And Balaram, in addition to supplying the strength needed to overcome such obstacle, he has an avidya removing potency. That's what the Adi Guru Balaram does. Here's some additional explanation coming from commentary on this verse by an acharya in the line of Vallabhacharya. That's a drawing of Vallabhacharya on the right. Only Balaram as Adi Guru removes avidya. Balaram as an expansion of Krishna is the original spiritual master, and the original spiritual master, or those representing the original spiritual master, have a function. That's removal of avidya. He writes in his commentary on this verse, Krishna deferred to Balaram also because Krishna wanted to defer the precedent that Ramachandra had killed Kara. So Balaram should kill Dhenuka. He's also Rama. Interesting, huh? And elsewhere, there's an explanation that more common. Krishna had promised Prahlad that he would not kill his descendants. So Krishna deferred to Balaram. And in his previous life, Dhenuka was a devotee, a Vishnu Bhakta. Vishnu Bhakta. But he was a descendant of Prahlad in his previous life. Sahashika, not a devotee, I'm sorry. He wasn't a devotee. But he was a descendant of Prahlad. And this is from Garga Samhita. We're about to end. In his past life, Dhenukasura was the powerful son of King Bali, who was a son of Virochana, and his name was Sahashika, which means bold, powerful, or arrogant. One time he enjoyed pastimes with 10,000 women on Gandhamadana mountain. And that was a mistake because at the other side of the mountain was Durvasa Muni. The sounds in that forest of the many musical instruments and ankle bells broke the trance of Durvasa Muni, who in a cave nearby was meditating on Lord Krishna. Now, I don't normally think of him meditating on Lord Krishna, but that's what it says here. His very thin, with a long beard, walking with wooden sandals, holding a stick, and glowing with flames of anger, Durvasa, whose angry gaze makes the universe tremble, left his cave and spoke to Sahashika. This is Bali's son, and Bali is the grandson of Prahlad. Fool, ass-like person, rise, become an ass, O demon. After 400,000 years in the transcendental circle of Mathura, in the sacred forest of Talavan, you will attain liberation by Lord Balaram's hand. Sri Narada said, because Krishna, or Vishnu, had given Prahlad Maharaj the benediction, your descendants will not be killed by me, Krishna arranged that Dhenukasura was killed by Lord Balaram's hand. Garga Samhita. So that's the final slide. Krishna, in his childhood pastimes, in the first day of taking care of the cows in Vrindavan. So we're getting the sign of Krishna's kindness upon the cowherd boys, his loving dealings with them in general, his desire to fulfill their desire, and his pastimes to rid the world of demons. And the demigods were really happy when they saw this. So every evening we're going to explore like this, Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Any discussion? I see a hand over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the class. Maharaj, I have two questions. My first question
Speak it right into the microphone so people remote can hear.
My first question is, you mentioned that Lord Balaram takes away two tendencies, where Lord Dhenukasura represents ignorance.
Speak slowly.
Sorry. Dhenukasura represents ignorance of spiritual knowledge. What does Pralambasur represent?
What does what?
Pralambasur represent. You said the two tendencies that Lord Balaram removes are represented by the two demons that he kills. One is Dhenukasur, and is the other one Pralambasur?
Yeah, we discussed Pralambasura yesterday evening.
Oh, I think I missed it. So what tendency does Pralambasur represent?
Pralambasura. I'm going to go to it so you can see it, not only hear it. Pralambasura represents lusty inclinations, desire for personal gain and honor. Now that's straight from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Bhaktisiddhanta confirms the same. Desire for personal gain and honor.
Maharaj?
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Go ahead. You got the microphone. I can't hear you. Did you get nervous or what happened? You forgot? You forgot?
Yes,
Okay, we'll come back to you when you remember. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, if you look at the numbers, it's a 8th pregnancy, and for Krishna, Ashtama Garbha, and he's born on the 8th day, Ashtama.
Yeah, Ashtama.
And if you see here in this story, when he goes first time with the calves, and he joins the cows, which is 8 miles radius, and when Dhenukasura was killed and thrown away, and when he attends the salvation, his horse chariot is 8 miles. So is 8 any significant than other numbers?
Oh, you get the numerology question?
So
Is that what it is?
Yes, Maharaj.
Well, he wasn't thrown 8 miles because it was 8 days after his birthday. There may be some significance of the number 8, but I'm not a numerologist. I don't, there may be some significance. I couldn't say. It's just that the 8 that's Prabhupada's language for the conversion of a yojana. 1 yojana equals 8 miles. Now, there are other conversion, persons that say some number other than 8. Some say 11, etc. But that we say 8 because that's the number that Prabhupada used. 1 yojana, 8 miles. Are you ready? You remembered? Okay, good. Looks like you're chewing your mask too. How's it taste? Good? Okay, go ahead. When you ask your question, you can move your mask. Wouldn't that be nice? Oh, good. Ask as many questions as you like.
Were any of the Pandavas from Mahabharata in Lord Krishna's pastimes?
Of course. Krishna would regularly engage himself in activities with the Pandavas. They were very dear to him, and he was very dear to them.
Second question, do all demons that Lord Krishna encounters have noble past lives?
Is it known who they were in their past life? Is that your question?
Yeah, was their past life noble?
Noble or
Yeah,
known? Noble.
Noble, good.
No.
So not all. Pralambasura's pastime
Was noble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And some were not. Some were just straight on demons.
just like
Speak into the microphone.
Sahasiva.
Sahasika.
Sahasika.
Yeah. He was a demon. Like him. Over here. Raise your hand.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question from this morning's class.
Okay.
You briefly mentioned some people talking about Radha and Krishna's relationship and speaking negatively about it, if I'm correct.
They're having issues. Some sadhus in Vrindavan, during Rupa Goswami's time and during Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's time, probably even today, there's some sadhus that don't like emphasis upon the parakiya as opposed to a swakiya aspect.
So what do we say to people who come to us or say something negatively to us about Radha and Krishna's relationship?
It depends on who that person is. Some persons, we just smile. Say, would you like some prasadam? It depends. You know, if they're reasonable or just, you know, angry and insulting and arrogant, you know, there's different, depends upon the mentality and the mood of the person. If they just, they don't agree with it, you know, it depends on the person. You could ask them, what is it that you do agree on? And then you can say, da 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 da. And then, you know, if they see that you're interested in what their convictions are, then you could, a possible consideration is, that's very nice. You know, it depends on the person. If they're not, they may not be very nice. But, you know, what you're saying is very nice. And that very same concern was a major concern in Jaipur, along with the Ramanadis, and they were saying the same things you're saying. Do you know that history? And you just, you know, go into some history and say, you know, that was settled by a commentary in Vedanta Sutra that explained the whole thing to their satisfaction. If you're really interested, I can get you, you know, I can tell you how to get a copy of what satisfied their concerns, you know. And they were probably a bit more learned than you are, my dear friend. But, you know, they were very satisfied. Anyway, it depends. You know, but, you know, if they're just like ignorant and offensive, you just walk away. Or smile and walk away. I'm sorry, but, you know, as Vaishnavas, we don't engage ourselves in argumentum ad bacalam. We don't do that. If you want to do that, find somebody else. I'm not, you know, but if you want to be reasonable, I can share with you. This is the foundational understanding. The foundational understanding is in Sri Bhashya, in Govinda Bhashya, there's Shakti and there's Shaktiman. And the Shakti is inseparable from Shaktiman. So there's no question of wed or unwed. It's Shakti and Shaktiman. And in that Leela of Shakti and Shaktiman, there may be this Leela, there may be that Leela. But they're inseparable. And, you know, and one of Krishna's Leela is wed, and one of Krishna's Leela is unwed, because everything is within the source of everything. But it's still, you know, Shakti and Shaktiman. Mm-hmm.
I have one question. So we hear, and you said that the cowherd boys love Krishna very much and Balaram, but is there affection for Krishna and Balaram special, or do they also have almost equal affection for each other?
For each other means what? One cowherd boy, another cowherd boy?
Yeah, between
Yeah,
all
like
of
a big
themselves.
family. But naturally the affection goes to the cynosure. You have affection for that which is part of the cynosure, but you have special affection for the cynosure. Naturally.
I see.
Naturally.
So that affection extends all through, like to
Oh,
all
yeah.
Brajvasis?
Of course, absolutely. It's a transcendental family.
Okay.
There's affection.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So I have a question that's not related to today's pastime, but so when we like pass on, will our soul be in the same form as our body, or will it be in a different form and shape?
Will you have the same body or a different body? Is that your question?
No. So when our souls
The
leave
soul leaves the body. Where does the soul go? That's your question? No.
yeah. No. Will our soul be like have the same face, same shape as
Oh
our?
yeah, the soul has the same shape.
And where do we go when we
Depends
pass?
on your consciousness.
Will we go to like heaven or
It
hell?
depends
or?
on your consciousness.
Okay. Thanks, Maharaj.
Back there, yeah.
Guruman, my question is regarding this aspect about Lord Balaram helping us remove these obstacles in sadhana bhakti. About this part about the effort, that when there is a recognition, so it's probably more like there is elaboration on the aspect about self-honesty and self-acceptance.
Elaboration of?
The aspect about self-honesty and self-acceptance, that when the recognition is there, that these are the tendencies deep-rootedly embedded in our heart. I want elaboration about the effort aspect on the sadhaka side.
You're throwing a curveball. The curveball was the self-acceptance. Is your question really how do you do a self-acceptance and take steps for improvement at the same time? Is that what your question is or no?
Or more of how to evoke the mercy of Lord Balaram, how to
By your
direct the
by your
effort.
sincerity. And sincerity is specific about the purpose and is specific about dependency. Effort, sincere effort without dependency is incomplete. So if one is thinking, I'm going to make a really sincere effort, and not necessarily like consciously thinking, and I don't need to depend on Balaram or anybody else, it's just going to make a sincere effort. That's different than a sincere effort that's complete, that I'm going to make my sincere effort, and I'm going to be fully dependent upon Krishna, or in this case we're speaking about Balaram, recognizing that effort in my dependency upon him to make that effort fruitful. That's love. Love isn't just wait, and love isn't just do service. Service is it's dependent. It's a relationship. It's simply a relationship matter. And in the relationship, it's two ways. No, you're going to put your hand down. We're going to go to other people. We'll come back to you when everybody gets questioned out. Anything else? Looks like we're questioned out. No, over here. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Maharaj, thanks for the wonderful class. It was really, it was
Colorful,
really good.
right?
Sorry, what?
Colorful, lots of nice illustrations.
It's colorful, and it induces more bhakti. Once you hear the Harikatha all the time, and especially from you, like this was really wonderful and colorful. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for your time, Maharaj. Like I was curious, like in spiritual realm. Okay, so how exactly it is to look and how people will live there, and is it the pastime happens in the spiritual realm also, like in Goloka, and it's just like here what's happening here right now, like when Lord descended down to this earth. So whatever the pastimes were there here, he performed the same pastimes happened there also. I was curious about that, and
whoa, you're getting too many ands. You're asking a big question, and you're going to add some ands. So let me just deal with it like the four things you just asked before you go to some ands.
Okay.
You want to know what's it like?
Yes.
Yeah. And you want to know, does the same thing happen in Goloka Vrindavan as happens here?
Yes.
And what's it like?
Yes.
So you got your seatbelt fastened?
Yes.
Our acharyas teach, Rupa Goswami for starters, and others concur, that in Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna and Balaram are eternally 16. Pause. That means the childhood pastimes of Krishna are not displayed. They're internal. The mood is, because everything is within Krishna, right?
Yes.
So the mood is there, but the pastime is not there.
Okay.
Only when Krishna comes to this Bhoma Lila, not just the earth planet, but in some universe, all these pastimes up till 16, that's where the pastime is being displayed. So the answer to your question is no. It's there in a bhava form, but not in the lila form.
Okay. And where can I get more information about
Oh,
this?
just read Prabhupada's books.
Okay.
It's not, but don't just be looking for information, because the whole thing will just go in one ear and out the other ear if you're just information searching.
Okay.
What I mean by that is, the realization comes by stimulation of love, not information. Information, more information. Now I got it. What's next? It's not like that. It's from the heart. It's from with the mood of love and wanting to be in service to the loving object, lovable object, and stimulating your love by reading Prabhupada's books and hearing, just as we're doing. So, just continue hearing what we're hearing, and you'll get the picture. But it's not just information. We're accustomed. I'm emphasizing this because our education model is information-based, not character-based. There's no harm with information. There's nothing wrong with information, but it's incomplete. You just want to go on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, without any real change of heart. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Hare Krishna.
Yep.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thanks for nice classes and patiently answering all questions. Maharaj, my question is that earlier we were thinking we are independent. Later we realized we have little free will. But recent days I'm feeling, we hardly have any free will. That is one point.
I didn't get the first point. Did you get the first point?
Initially we were feeling that we are independent, but later when you're coming to Krishna consciousness, realizing we are not independent.
Okay.
We are dependent on Krishna.
Material consciousness is thinking we're independent, and devotional consciousness is thinking we're dependent. That's the first point.
Not like that, Maharaj. Like after coming to Krishna consciousness, we are dependent on Krishna. We are not independent. That realization has come.
Good.
Yeah. But the free will point of view, earlier maybe, initial thinking a lot of free will, but recent days feeling actually we hardly have any free will. So
we have lots of free will.
So
it's limited, but lots of free will.
Yeah, just I would like to understand what is that free will really we have, because the
unlimited.
point.
It's within the range. I'm interrupting.
Yeah.
Within the range of the internal potency, there's lots of freedom. Lots of freedom. Let's just take, for example, what we just heard. The cowherd boys could have, they're the internal potency, right? They could have said all kinds of things. Like the Dhenukas, the tal fruits are really sweet, but Dhenukas's really bad. So let's stay away from there. They could have said that. They could have said so many things. But because of they're exercising their free will, and the fragrance and the stories they heard and this and that, and they know Krishna is all powerful. If you so desire, Let's go get some fruits. And then you can get rid of this Dhenuka because you're the destroyer of wickedness. And then the whole of Vrajvasis and you and Balaram can have some of these nice fruits. What do you think? If you think it should be done. So they're exercising their free will. The limit of free will is we're tiny, we're dependent. But in this dependent position, the range of free will is vast. Dependent, but a vast range of free will. In terms of rasa, in terms of, within that rasa, so many things. So many things.
Can you help me to understand? In material life, we don't have much free will, but we have a lot of free will in spiritual path. That is, you like to say
well, we
something?
think we have free will in material life. We think we have free will. And we are making choices, but within the modes of nature. And once making choices within the modes of nature, the rope gets shorter and shorter. And then when there's in the the spiritual potency, there's still a rope. The rope is, we're not totally independent. But let's just take Narada Muni. Is Narada Muni dependent or independent? He has a spiritual body. He can go anywhere in the universe. He doesn't need a visa or a passport. He just doesn't need an airplane. He just goes wherever he wants to go, spiritual, material world. He's got vast freedom. And he's absolutely dependent upon Krishna. So, now the persons who are in the external energy, they look at the lives of devotees and say, gosh, you people are too restricted. Or, as Prabhupada said, Ellen Gernberg told him, Swamiji, you're very conservative. But it's the regulative principles of freedom. And within that realm of freedom, there's freedom. But there's constraints within that realm of freedom. So it's the lens that you look at things through, and that the lenses keep changing as you mature spiritually. And your free will choices change as you mature spiritually. The inner contemplations, as you're within those confines of constraints, the do's and the do nots. Consciousness it's ever dynamic and ecstatic, not static. All right?
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, last question. Mr. Gap, you got the microphone. Behind you, the young boy.
Does Lord Krishna have our entire life planned out like a
No.
entire?
No. We're making, it's this question over here. We're making choices. What time are you going to go to bed tonight? Does Krishna know? It's like he's structured it. That's it. You don't have any free will choice. What are you going to have for breakfast tomorrow? Is it already decided by Krishna? You just have to ask Krishna, what am I going to have for breakfast tomorrow? Or are you going to make some choices? You make choices. We make choices. Krishna may know, but Krishna's not he's not overseeing and mandating, make this choice, don't make those other choices. We're making choices.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.